Is this the best single issue of Superman of all time? Just maybe. So you see here that this is called What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. However, you may know this story by another name, and that's Superman versus the Elite. That was an animated movie that they did a few years ago that was entirely based on this one issue. So, the creative team on this is Joe Kelly and it's Doug Mahnke. So this story is about, basically it's about this group of people that are, and we'll see if where's their profile pic. So there's a bunch of build up to actually showing these guys, where they're talking to the Earth, they're like, basically giving their manifesto, and how they basically just don't give a shit. They will kill anybody who's in their way, and they won't care. And then we finally get the full shot of them after they've only been shown in either shadows or just off panel for a solid like 10 pages or so. You can see right there. So these guys call themselves the Elite, and they are a sort of a rip-off slash parody slash whatever of the Authority, which was the big-time title that was coming out of Wildstorm at the time. Now the thing is, Joe Kelly actually really liked the Authority. And he talks about this in the commentary for Superman vs. the Elite, that he loved the Authority. At the time, a lot of people, this was like the hot new thing, was Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch revamping the Stormwatch title for Wildstorm into something that was called Widescreen Comics. And it was basically like this really like edgelord, like you almost want to say that it was comics growing up, but that's not really the case. Because so you see here, and so you have Manchester Black. Manchester Black was based on Jenny Sparks, kind of. You have Coldcast. Coldcast is based on Apollo, kind of. You have, I don't remember who this chick is, but she's kind of based on the Engineer and that other female character with the wings, whose name I can never remember. And this guy is kind of based on the Doctor, who nobody remembers from the Authority. He was not one of the cool characters. But anyway, so the Authority has kind of, I don't want to say it's fallen down the memory hole, because that's not quite accurate, but it's not nearly as popular today as it used to be. Like, New 52, they actually relaunched Stormwatch, and it didn't really catch on. And now in Rebirth, they're doing The Wildstorm, which has Warren Ellis on it. But it's not really setting the world on fire the way that the Authority did. Because the thing about the Authority was that if you really analyze what they did, the Authority actually had less moral complexity than, say, the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee characters that were created in the early 60s. Like, everything that they did was like, it was really like over the top, really violent, but the characters never really had any internal struggle. They knew what they wanted, and they knew who the bad guys were, and if you were a bad guy, you got killed. And that was all the problems they faced. The problems they faced were like, what if this guy from an alternate dimension invaded Earth and wanted to turn China into a rape camp? Well, you would kill that guy and stop his army using your vast power. That's what would happen. So, the Authority was sort of a stopgap measure to turn superhero comics into, to sort of force superhero comics to step up their game, to sort of cast a mirror at superhero comics. And, to be fair, if we hadn't had the Authority, we wouldn't have had the Ultimates, which was Marvel's attempt to be the Authority, and the Ultimates greatly influenced the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of overall like look and style, if not overall tone. So it did have, I don't want to say it didn't have an effect, but what this is making fun of, it hasn't really stood the test of time, as far as I'm concerned. Although if you want to know something that absolutely didn't stand the test of time, this was not the final appearance of these characters. In point of fact, these guys were set to appear in this story, which was, I guess it was basically trying to be the Authority, but in DC Comics. I've never heard anybody anybody talking about these guys right here. As much as the Authority may or may not have fallen down the memory hole, you never hear about this. So DC's attempt to rip off the thing it was ripping off in the first place did not go well. Anyway, so the whole point here is that these guys have been dealing with bad guys in a very sort of violent, over-the-top way. There's a bad guy, a dictator that's using super weapons. Boom, they just die. You see it right here. They just kill this guy. And Superman, the whole time, is just not happy about it. And then they bring him up to their sort of mothership thing that allows them to traverse dimensions. And they have a lot of not too superheroic things about their modus operandi. You can see it right here. So he's talking about their mothership, which was, the Authority has something similar. Manchester Black's talking to Superman about their mothership, and he says, it's a bacteria colony by birth. Quote-unquote Bunny became a floating fortress when we shanghaied her to this universe. Spoils of war. The rest of her kind were on the losing end of a civil action. Guess who captured the flag? We think she had the capacity to feel loss, so we jettisoned her heart a few years back. Seemed the humane thing to do. And then after explaining this to Superman, he says, for a bloke who sports a cape, you're not very jolly. So if you compare this to the movie, Superman vs. the Elite versus this comic, one thing about the movie is that the Elite are generally speaking portrayed more sympathetically in the movie than they are in the comic. In the comic, they are huge assholes. Like, almost irredeemable assholes. However, their story, like I said, did continue on afterwards. So there was more to build on for the movie. There was more to build up for the movie. And actually, Joe Kelly was the screenwriter on the animated movie. So he was able to write both the comic and the movie that the comic would eventually be based on. And anyway, Manchester Black gives him this whole spiel about how basically the whole world of superheroics just doesn't work anymore. There's no black and white anymore. It's just who has the power and who makes the rules. And it's that. That is that. And Superman is just infuriated by it, and he basically challenges him to meet him by the flagpole after school. They go on at some length about their powers. Like Manchester Black, he has psychic powers that can, according to Lois Lane, he can punch a hole through a mountain just by thinking it. Coldcast can channel immense amount of energy. The Hat has vast magical power. What's-her-name has her symbiotic relationship with her sort of dragon-like things here makes her very formidable. So basically, they end up challenging Superman after some stuff happened. So Superman's in bed with his wife Lois, and Lois is like, you can't beat them. They're too powerful. What are you gonna do? And he's like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. He's basically Rocky. And they agree to have the fight on one of the moons of Jupiter. And the Elite are broadcasting the fight to the world over. I love this ending. So we see the Elite taking on Superman. And Manchester Black's psychic powers floor him immediately. The female character's symbiotic relationship with these animals overwhelm him. The Hat is able to stop him with his magic power. The Manchester Black is able to give him a seizure. And then Coldcast finally hits him with this incredibly powerful energy blast. So the fight is over before almost anybody that was watching it can comprehend what happened. And, once again, the movie portrays them much more sympathetically than the comic does. So in the comic, they're like, hey, who wants to do naughty things with this cape that's left behind? And then they hear someone in the distance. And it turns out that Superman wasn't vaporized. Like it seemed like he was. Superman goes full heel here. He first upsets the female character's body chemistry so that the parasites on her body are no longer bonded with her. And then he creates this wind vortex that is designed to, it can't kill the magic character, because the magic character has made himself immune to any physical pain. But the vortex that Superman has created is going 500 miles an hour, at least. So it creates this vacuum that causes his lungs to collapse. Which that's the thing about Superman and magic powers. People say he's weak to magic. He's not weak. He just simply has no inherent resistance to it, like he does to physical damage. But there are all sorts of ways to get around magic. And this is an easy one right here. The Hat, this character, made himself immune to physical damage, so Superman just simply didn't attack him physically. Cold Cast has been shown to be very powerful, but his power is very limited. So Superman, after apparently killing the Hat, just simply pulls Cold Cast out of the artificial atmosphere that they created on this Jupiter moon and causes him to causes his lungs to collapse in space. And then we get this reveal of Superman right here, where he is just angry and upset and bloody and nearly standing, or nearly collapsed, but just angry at the Elite. And then we get this great scene here where, once again, Superman is supposed to be weak to psychic attacks, right? Which, once again, he's not actually weak to psychic attacks, he just doesn't have any special resistance to psychic attacks. But, as Manchester Black starts out this incredibly powerful psychic attack that he's about to do, Superman uses his heat vision to give him a lobotomy and cut out the part of his brain that allows him to use psychic powers. So this really powerful psychic just gets completely depowered with minimal effort on Superman's part. And it's like, there was no reason he couldn't have just started the fight like this. Absolutely none. He just wanted to take all of that damage just to show them that he could. And that he could nullify all of their powers in a way that left them powerless. I have been a big advocate that Superman is untouchably powerful when he wants to be. Like, if Superman lets loose, like he does in this issue, Superman shouldn't be able to be stopped by anybody. When you look at the really crazy things that Superman can do, nobody has any obvious counter to that. All of the magic casters, like Dr. Fate and Zatanna, they still need to cast that spell, which takes time. Even if it only takes seconds, that's like hours for Superman. Every psychic, they need to think in order to use their psychic power, but Superman can move faster than thought. Every guy that's strong, can they survive out in space? Because Superman can. Every person that's like really tough, the same thing. Like, every single thing that Superman can do counters almost anything that can be used against him reasonably. Even Kryptonite. Kryptonite can be nullified by heat vision. They've proven that, like, there was an old issue where Superman just simply bricked a piece of Kryptonite by using his heat vision against it. So this issue really hammers at home that when Superman wants to be, there is nobody that can touch him. Not even characters like Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel or Dr. Fate, characters that you'd think might have enough power to stop him. There's nothing they can do. And if Superman embraced this might makes right philosophy, nobody could stop him. All of the world's superheroes could get together and they couldn't stop him. It would just end like this every single time. With you getting bitch slapped across the room because Superman just nullified whatever advantage you thought you had over him. It's pretty brutal. And the whole point of the issue is that Joe Kelly, like I said, Joe Kelly really liked the Authority. But, and he says this in the commentary to Superman vs. the Elite, he was like, if all superhero comics were like the Authority, they would be crappy. They wouldn't be any good. They would just be really, really basic, really edgelord, really sort of not very interesting comics. they would all be just, oh, well, this guy is stronger than this guy, so therefore this guy wins. The tension with Superman comics, and this is what people don't understand, right? Because it's like Micah Curtis, who I really like, but he said more than once that Silver Age Superman is a Mary Sue. Silver Age Superman is the best Superman, because Silver Age Superman had all the power in the world. And his limitation, it wasn't his power, right? There was nobody that could touch Silver Age Superman in terms of power. His limitation was his morals and his intelligence. He had to think his way out of every problem. It was understood that Superman's power would be adequate to whatever solution he could come up with. But he couldn't always come up with the right solution, or it would take him a while, or, something. And so that's what this issue is getting at. That the whole point of Superman is that it's not that he has all the power, right? That's an element of his character, but it's not the most important element. The most important element is that he uses it judiciously, because as it turns out, he didn't actually kill all those people. They were just simply knocked out. So not only was he able to use his power to overcome the inherent strengths that these people had over him, but he was able to do it in a way that didn't hurt them. And so it finally ends with Superman finally saying that the Elite can't ever stop going after him, but that he sort of welcomes the challenge that the Elite pose to him, because it challenges his character and it challenges him to stay on the straight and narrow, and it also allows him to keep these guys in check. So yeah, this issue might be the best single issue that I have ever read, anyway, of any Superman comic, because it just shows not only how powerful Superman is, but also what the limits of that power are. And the limits of that power are not physical. They are of the mind, and they are of the spirit. It turns out that if he puts his mind to it, he really can do anything. But the strength of Superman is not that he can do anything, it's that he doesn't. It's that he restrains himself when he needs to. And that's what makes him so great. That's what makes him so interesting in character. That's what the best Superman stories are all about. So tell me, what do you think? Tell me if you've ever read this issue or seen the movie. In any case, this is Unranked Chevron signing off.